Good morning. Happy timeline jump. Happy Friday. I have your energy update for Friday, August 1st. Hi, my name is Paula Taylor. I'm a sound and energy activator, intuitive reader and channeler, body worker, and fearless alchemist, and I coach people on the path to spiritual awakening. So I did not sleep much last night. You can probably tell I'm really tired, and if I'm a little like that's just where I was at. We'll get into that a little bit. So the Schumann resonance, the graph was down, and it was down. There was the earthquake, but also sometimes that happens right before a timeline jump. And then if you look, when it came back up, there's clearly like a timeline jump there. And I have a kind of a yes and here from my guides. So yes, and we already felt that, a lot of us. When I made that video on Monday where I was like super excited and I was like, we've arrived. And then we talked a little bit about Christmas presents. I think that was on Wednesday. Like, a lot of us have already experienced the shift of that timeline jump, and it started kind of at the beginning of this week. And then like it showed up for like the larger collective kind of early this morning. So what happens when we have a timeline jump? It's a frequency shift. That's all a timeline jump is. It's like collectively we've moved into a different frequency. And we do this all the time individually, and then sometimes we do it collectively to the point that like it actually shows up on something like the Schumann resonance graph. So like we were all kind of, or not all of us, but the people who have been watching me and the people I interact with, like a lot of us were talking about this feeling of excitement and this feeling of newness and this feeling of kind of like again, Christmas has arrived. And so we were already kind of feeling it's like, sometimes it comes in like those of us who are like holding the space or leading the way, we have the jump before the collective so that we can kind of be in the space of accommodating and integrating when the collective comes in is like, I don't know what's happening to me. So if you're in the integration now, or you have been for the past couple of days, like don't worry, you're right on track. I will tell you that what happened last night, we also had a bunch of intense energy come in last night. And the message that came in on Wednesday, I'm going to have a hard time even saying this, was stop worrying. The message that came in last night was stop sabotaging yourself. And I've got longer form content on that. I'm going to do my podcast today. We're going to talk about the paradox of self-sabotage. Now I've committed myself to that because I was like, I don't know if I want to talk about that. So that podcast episode will be available publicly either later today or tomorrow, anywhere on streaming services or on YouTube. So we have been asked over this year, the course of 2025, to reclaim our personal power. And there's been lots of steps to that. That's actually, I have a podcast plan for that where I talk about like, here's the step, 1 step, 2 step, 3 steps, because sometimes it feels a little bit like we're like weaving through, or we're like pinballing around, and it's like not clear that the whole pinball machine is serving us in a certain way. It just feels kind of like we're bouncing around. But this whole year has been serving us to reclaim personal power individually and then collectively to take back our power from these systems that no longer work, this patriarchal system that's no longer working. And so there's very deep shadow work around this. There's very deep excavation to be had. There's a very deep dismantling of the way that these external programs have been internalized by us through things like ancestral lineage and programming, cultural programming, and all of that stuff, the family of origin things. There's a reason I call it excavation, because there's always another layer to go. So what was coming in for me last night was I was actually working with a client, and I'm going to get into this in the podcast, but I saw a thing for the client, and like sometimes when I see a thing for the client doesn't want to see it, and I get it. And then what happened like kind of overnight or into this morning was that then I saw the thing for me, because it's like a theme thing about this kind of paradox of self-sabotage. So that's kind of the next step here, like in reclaiming your personal power, is like, where are you giving your power away? And you're probably not doing it intentionally, or maybe you are because it keeps you safe. I mean, that's the bottom line, is like, where is there a belief that I have to give my power away in whatever form this takes because it keeps me safe? And like the time for that has passed. The time for worrying so much about physical safety has passed. And I recognize that might sound like an insensitive thing to say when I'm a person in a privileged position of having pretty good physical safety in this exact moment. And also, no one ever really has physical safety. That is part of the high stakes of being in a physical human body, is that physically At any moment, something could happen and your physical life could be over. And I used to, when I was an ultrasound tech, sometimes people would say, I know what you're looking at. Tell me what's happening. And I'd say, I can't do that. I'll lose my license, blah, blah, blah. And I always like to make things funny. And so they would kind of say, well, just tell me if I'm going to live. And I'd say, I could tell you that you're going to live, and then you could get hit by a bus on the way back through the parking lot. And like sometimes people would laugh, and then sometimes people would like get really upset about that. But this is the reality of being a person, is that you never know what's going to happen or when it's going to happen and how it's going to happen. And that is why spiritually we are always safe. Spiritually we are eternal. That is why spiritual work is so important. And so when it comes to matters of physical safety, humanity has been trapped in this focus around physical safety for a really long time. And it's very important because in order to like have a human life, you have to have certain things to keep your body alive, right? Like that is a foundational thing. And part of this move out of like 3D is that in the 5D space, physical safety is less important because we're more focused on the spiritual. And in order to get there, we have to dismantle these things around physical safety that are still holding us back, that are keeping us from expanding further into the 5D. So this timeline jump was about like, now what's going to happen with the integration is I've got to confront some of these really deep safety fears. And there's always more of them. Yay and boo. Like, yeah, it is what it is. Like you excavate and then there's more to excavate and then there's more to excavate. That's part of this human process. So discovering these like deep kind of existential fears. I've heard the word existential so many times recently from clients, and I feel it because when you get deep enough and you're excavating deep enough, you're threatening your ego in a huge way because your ego thinks that it is who you are. Your personality self thinks that this is who I am, and it doesn't understand this like eternal soul kind of quantum being sort of thing. And so when you get deep enough and you start excavating fears that kind of threaten the ego self, like that is when we use the word existential. That is when like people are like, who am I and what am I doing here? And we talked a little bit about that on Monday. So if you're still in the super excited like Christmas energy, huzzah! And like also there's going to be some integration around this, and that is as it should be. And when it comes, it'll come in, and don't panic because you're always supported and you're always safe in a spiritual way. Energy is never created nor destroyed, right? Quantumly, you are an eternal being that will go on no matter what happens to your physical body. But explaining that or trying to work through the human ego stuff around that can be really challenging. So I'm going to give you some supportive energy today to kind of help, especially if you're in that integration. And just know that you're loved, know that you're supported. Don't do this while you're driving. Close your eyes if you can, put a hand or two on your heart. Put something in the comments to consent. My guides are laughing because that's extra important today. Kwe ataka nakieta kuataka anaya teke anaya nakuataka anakaya teke anakaya teke anakaya teke kwe anakaya teke anakaya takaya nakaya tekaya nakaya nakaya teka kwe anakaya 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 tika takaya nakia teke ataka aya teke nake uataka nakia teke anaka ataki nake uataka nake kwe anakaya teke utakaya nakia teke anakatea taka uyama say yama yama The eternal essence of your being is unconditional love. So know that wherever you are in this process, you are made of unconditional love, and thus you are supported by unconditional love. You are held, you are cherished, not just by your guides in the universe, but by other people who can actually see you. And this is a space for that. Let us see each other in this space and cherish each other, support and love each other. Have a beautiful day.